Hi, I'm romance novelist Maureen Driscoll, and welcome to Maureen Driscoll Romance, where I talk about everything romance related in the thoroughly unromantic modern world. And today is another edition of You Knew It Was Over When. Actually, it's I Knew It Was Over When because it's about me again. I've worked as a comedy writer in Hollywood for the past couple decades. And a few years ago, I worked on a show that we were doing a pilot. And it was a really small office, like the size of a closet, basically. And there's this woman, Dora, not her real name. And there was a head writer, Fred, not his real name either. And then me. And it was a fun group. Like we laughed a lot. And trust me when I say not all comedy rooms are very much fun to be in. But this one was. I mean, we really got along well. And Fred and I had a little bit of chemistry to the point of when Dora wasn't around, we did fool around a few times. Now, this is not a Me Too situation because, first of all, I was kind of the instigator. And second, he wasn't really the boss, which I guess if he were here, he might dispute that. But it was the size of a closet with three people in there. That's not boss like. But he did have a lot of experience as a comedy writer. So he was nominally the boss, let's put it that way. So Fred and I hung out a few times. And as a matter of fact, we went to Double Indemnity on the big screen. And it was great. It was just, I was like, wow, this is one of those experiences that was a really cool thing to do. And so we got along. We had similar tastes. We were similar age. He's smart. He's funny. He was a little intense. I did notice that early on, intense. For instance, we had a mutual friend. I'm gonna call this guy Bob, not his real name either. And Bob is like the comedy writing community in Hollywood is pretty small. And Bob is like he's like a heavyweight. Like a lot of people know him. Everybody loves Bob. He's just fantastic. And so I remember talking to Fred one day because when I'd seen that I was going to be working with Fred, and of course I looked up his credits and I'd seen they'd worked on something together. So I said to Bob, I said, "Hey, I'm going to work with Fred," and he's like, "Oh, Fred's a great guy. He's smart. He's funny. You'll really like him. Yeah, tell him hi for me." So when I went to Fred and passed on Bob's regards, Fred gets this expression on his face like this like kind of stormy expression. This is very kind of intense. So I was like, "Oh, is there something?" He's like, "Oh, well, I have a problem with him." I'm like, "Really?" Because no one has a problem with Bob. But Fred then proceeds to tell me a story that I do not understand to this very day. I mean, it's just sort of, it was grievance filled, but I just couldn't find a grievance in there, not a real one. So I thought that was odd. And then I found out that not only does he have a problem with Bob, he had a problem with Bob's twin brother. Now I don't know if he had a problem with Bob's twin brother because they looked alike, or if Bob's twin brother had also done something equally like unclear that because he was just like, oh yeah, yeah, just this scowl, this intense like like, yeah, I've been aggrieved type of thing. So that was not ideal. But again, I don't have particularly high standards, obviously, for men. So I was like, oh, and still he's funny, and Double Indemnity counts for a lot. So we continued to see each other a bit, and again, fooling around the office every once in a while when old Dora wasn't around. And then Dora went away for a week. And in the meantime, we had somebody else in the really itty bitty office. And when that person left, Dora's desk was very like there was trash and there was just like, I think, food and coffee and like whatever. Because apparently, I can't remember who Dora's replacement was, but she was kind of slovenly. So, Bob and I were going to go out. No, Fred. Bob's a friend. It's hard to keep the aliases straight. Fred and I were supposed to go out because it's Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day. I should do a whole Valentine's Day debacle episode. But so we're supposed to go out. And I said, okay, well, why don't we clean up Dora's desk? Because I don't want her coming in on Monday to this messy desk. And then we'll get going. And he's like, well, that's not my job to do that. I'm like, well, okay, technically it's not mine either. But, this way, the two of us, it will go quicker because it was really a mess. It'll go quicker and then we can, go out for Valentine's Day. So he's like, no, I'm your boss. I'm not going to do that. But this is Dora is our friend. And Dora is still a friend. You know what? perhaps Dora and I should have had the relationship because I really like Dora and she's a friend to this very day. And Fred, I don't know where he is. So Fred is really drawing a line in the sand saying, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm like, oh, this is really weird. And then he gets really intense. It's sort of like the Bob and Bob's twin brother intense, but like times 10. And I'm just not understanding why he's getting so upset. And I'm also not backing down because he can help me clean up her desk. So he had bought me cookies for Valentine's Day, and he basically just like shoved them into my hands. And so I knew, and we did not go out that night. So I kind of, that was it. I mean, that was that. And just, no, I can't do glowering and aggrieved, and I just can't. So so I was like, oh, this is probably better that we. And I don't think he was really particularly heartbroken about it either. So yeah, it's fine. So he did not live in Los Angeles. So he went back home when the show was over and did not get on the air. But about a year or so later, he called me and he said he's going to be in Los Angeles and did I want to have dinner? And I kind of didn't. But, it was one of those things where it would be more of a thing to say I didn't. So I was like, okay, because I mean, he is smart and he's funny and I like eating. So we met at this restaurant in Studio City. And so we get there and he's sort of sitting in the booth thing and I'm out toward the aisle and Wanda Sykes walks in. I'm like, oh my God, it's Wanda Sykes. Because I love Wanda Sykes. She is my comedy hero. I love Wanda Sykes. She's hilarious. I admire her. She's just awesome. Like she really and they seated her like two tables because these tables are just tiny and they seated her like two tables away. I'm like, it's Wanda Sykes. And then I looked up and saw his glower. And I was like, what? And he's like, I worked with Wanda Sykes. I'm like, oh no. So at about the same time, Wanda sees Fred and comes over to the table and it's like, hey, Fred, how are, because it's Wanda Sykes and she's super nice and like whatever. And then he introduces me and I'm like, hi, I love you. I fangirled out. And I also kind of wanted to tell her to run. But anyway, so she goes back to her table and the glower continues. And I'm just hoping anything so I'm trying to make small talk. I'm working it for all I'm worth because the glower is getting worse. And he's just like darting, like he's shooting his death glares over there. And I was just like, no. So at some point it just becomes he can't handle it any longer. So he's like, I need to go talk to her. I was like, no, it's Wanda Sykes. So he gets up and he goes over and he's like, I want to talk to you. So she's like, okay. Because she probably, having worked with him, probably had an idea that this could happen. So they go over just a little over there. So I can't hear what they're talking about, but I can see the body language. And so Fred is a big guy. He's a big white guy. And Wanda Sykes is this lovely, petite African-American lady. And so the optics of the big white guy, like again, I don't know what he's saying, but he's saying, little petite Wanda Sykes. I'm just like, oh my God. And he's not a violent guy at all. So I'm not worried about her safety. And also, it's Wanda Sykes. She can take care of herself because she is awesome and she is strong and fierce. And she's holding her own. But still, there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe I should go over and intercede. But then I thought about the optics of the white lady going over to save the wonderful Wanda Sykes, African American lady. And I was like, that's not good either. So I'm just going to keep an eye out, but I'm just going to sit here. So after, I don't know, like a day and a half, he gets done with whatever grievance that was. And she goes back to her companions to finish her meal. And I'm like, oh my God. So he comes over and he's still in a mood. And we get through dinner and and then at the end of dinner, actually we were still eating, and Wanda finishes because I wouldn't want to stick around either. But Wanda gets up and she comes over to the table because she's the classiest person in the world. She's like, good to see you, Fred, and says to me, "It's really nice meeting you." And I'm just like, please don't remember me. Please don't remember me as the woman who was at this table. Oh my, but so nice. And I wanted to say thank you. And I also wanted to say, take me with you. But so that was the day that I met Wanda Sykes. And it was also the day that I realized that if I know in my head that no casual dinner either, it's when it's over, it is over. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please hit like and subscribe and share with your friends. And I will see you in the next video.